In this video, we're going to be taking a look at creating a little LED sign layout. And what we're going to be talking about is really about editing that layout. Now, I've never really seen this demonstrated or explained, but this is really, to me, a very important part when you're creating your layouts that, like I said, I don't really see anyone really talking about. So here are two common examples of LED strips. You can see the pink LED strip, these little black marks, okay? And then down here, you see the black marks here, okay? Now, what that is telling us is that is where we can cut our LED strip. If we cut right here in the middle, right here, for example, then what's going to happen is we're going to cut right through an LED. So on this particular strip, there are 3 LEDs per segment, okay? Now on this particular strip, there is just a single LED, okay? And so the spacing here, give or take, is about 3/8 of an inch spacing, where the distance here is roughly 1 inch, okay? Um, the manufacturers give it to us in centimeters, okay? So this, for example, is 2.5 centimeters, where this is, I think, 0.39 of a centimeter. So it's a lot smaller, okay? So your manufacturer will give you uh, how many centimeters. Now, what does all that really mean to us? Well, that's what we're going to explain as we create a design, okay? So I'm going to let's just say we're going to create a circle. All right, let's just do something real simple. And let's say we're going to do a 5-inch circle, okay? So there we go. So there's our 5-inch circle. Now, we could have it start and stop and make a complete circle. We could do that. Um, in fact, let's go ahead and do that. Let's just go ahead and do that. So how do we start and stop the neon on a circle? Well, in order for this to work the way we need it to work, we have to, right now, this is a closed shape, okay? So this is closed shape. So this is really true of any design software that we're using. Now, in my case, I'm using CorelDRAW, but this same process would be the same in Adobe Illustrator. It would be the same in uh, Inkscape as well, okay? So what we need is an open shape. So if we're going to route this out with a router, and we're just going to do, the router is going to follow along our path here, we can't have a closed shape. It's got to be open. So the way we do that is just click here, and we'll just break it apart right there. Okay, so now you can see it's no longer open. Yes, it's touching, right? But it's no longer open. Okay, so in CorelDRAW, there is a function called Object Properties, and we can look at the curve, and it will tell us how long that curve is. Okay, so our curve, the length of our curve is 15.71 inches. Now, what does that mean to us? Well, it's really important that we know how long that curve is, because we know where our cut lines are, and so we need to know, well, if we come around and around and come all the way back through, where are we going to cut our LED? In this case, we have a defined start and end point, but we also have a defined cut point. We know that we can't cut here because we're going to cut through that LED. We can't cut down here, and if we do cut there, then all the LEDs in that segment will go dead. So we don't want dead LEDs. So we have to cut dead on that line. Now, it's not very likely that if we start our strip and come all the way back around at 15.71 inches, it's not very likely that it's going to land dead on our cut line. But the challenge is we need it to land dead on our cut line in this particular example, because we're essentially creating a closed circle. But again, they don't really talk about that in the instructional videos, how to get there. So in Adobe Illustrator, there's a similar function that will tell you the length of the curve. Inkscape has a really neat function. We actually have a video on creating a layout in Inkscape, an entire design, and editing that design in Inkscape, so you definitely want to check that out. It's the Orange Crush video sign layout that we did, and that will show you Inkscape's version. So, but anyhow, so we know the length of the curve. So let me just tell you how to do it manually. So if you're using Illustrator or you're using Inkscape, let me tell you how to get the information manually. So, so in this case, it's 15.7. Let's go ahead and pull up our calculator here. So this circle is currently 15.7, and we want to divide that by our cut spacing, which in this case is 2.5 centimeters, and if you did the math, that would tell you it's 0.98 inches. And the manufacturer actually gives us that information too. So, so we're going to take our current inches divided by 0.98, and that is going to equal, look at that, I couldn't have guessed that, 16.02. So what that's telling us is that we can have 16 segments, and if we cut it at 16 segments, it'll start here, come all the way around, and end right there. Okay? Now that's really, really close. So in this particular example, for a 5-inch circle, yes, it does start and stop dead on. So that's cool. What if we did an oval shape? What if we need to do an oval shape? Well, now our length of our curve is 12.3. So let's do the math. So we take 12.3, we divide that by 0.98, what do we get? We get 12.55 segments. Well, we already know we got issues because we can't have 12.55. We can't have a half a segment because if we do that, we're going to have dead LEDs. So we cannot cut. It's got to either be 12 segments or it's got to be 13 segments. It can't be somewhere in between. So that's not going to work. But what if we were to use the other kind of LED where it has more cut lines, more cut options? What if we did that? Well, we'd have to do the same math. So we take 12.3, right? And we divide that by this spacing, which is basically 0.38 instead of 0.98. And so you can see here, well, we're closer. It's telling us we're going to need 32.3 segments. So it's close, but it's not close enough because we can't start and stop it because we're not at 32 or we're not at 33. We're at 32 and a third. So that's not going to work for us, right? So that's where our challenge is, okay? So let's just say, for example, use a different example. Let's say we wanted to put LED strips on this line right here. So you see we're at 4.66. So let's do the math real quick. So 4.66, that's what the curve shape is. If we divide that by 0.98, because those are the most common LEDs that I use, you can see here we're at 4 3/4. 4 3/4 segments. Well, we can't be at 4 3/4. We need to be at 5. So what would we have to do to this line to make it 5? Well, so first of all, how long is 5 segments? That's the first question. So 5 times 0.98 is 4.9. Okay, so this line is currently 4.66. We need it to be 4.9. Well, how could we make this line 4.9? Well, what we could do is we could just nudge it just a tiny skosh. See here? So we're stretching it out, and look at this dimension. Tell you what, let me undo this because I really want to illustrate this point. So there is the original, but now we're going to use a modified version. So I just copied it right on top of one another because we need to modify it so it is 4.9 because we already calculated that. Now this is 4.928, but it's close enough. Now, if we start our LED strip here and we end it here, then we know that we're going to land exactly on 5 segments. So 5 times 0.98, 5 segments times 0.98 is 4.9. Boom, Bob's your uncle, there you go. So you can see in this example, we changed it a fair bit, right? Well, what if we were to create a design, like maybe some text, okay? So just some simple text. Now we're going to do this all the time, right? So we're going to do this all the time. So let's just grab our text tool here, and let's go ahead and there's a particular font I like to use. It's a script font. It's called Bestie. I definitely recommend it. So let's just type in the word love. Okay. Let's just take a look at that. Okay, and let's say we wanted to make that love. Let's say we wanted to make it 16 inches. Okay. So there we go. So there is a 16-inch wide love. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to really quickly come in here and just add some let's go into wireframe mode real quick. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm using the Bezier tool, I believe it's what it's called. And I'm just creating some line segments, kind of going through this process of creating line segments like I would if I was creating an LED sign. Okay. So then so this will be all of my segments. Come around here. And I'm going to pick up where I left off there because normally my E's would just be one segment. Okay. So there we go. So now we essentially have our LED shapes the way we need them. There we go. Okay. Now we are going to fine tune them, of course, but that's our basic point right there. So the next thing to do is to go in and let's set our LED size, which is 6 millimeters. Okay. We're going to do rounded caps, and now what we're looking at is reality. Like this is what it would really look like if we were to set down some LEDs. This is what it would really look like in real life. Now I don't know. Didn't give us our rounded corners. There we go. Okay, so this is where I would come in and edit things a little bit. So for example, this shape here, we would bump it over. We can, because I wouldn't have it touching. This is just how I do it. I don't normally have it touching. So we pull this down a little bit. So we would just have a little bit of gap there, gap there. That looks good. I could pull this back. Little gap there, and then finally our E, I just pull that in a little bit. Okay, so let's just pretend that was our LED sign that we actually wanted to make. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is let's go back into object properties. And you'll see this right away where an initial problem will show up pretty quickly. So so we have this shape here. Now, oh, okay. I was like, something's kind of weird here. We created that with the Bezier tool, and so we have to convert those to curves because they were Beziers. So now when we click on it, we get the length of our curve. So this is where you can kind of see things happening straight away here. 2.45, that spells absolute misery because we know what our spacing is. It's 0.98. Well, 0.4 and 98, that's not going to jive. So that's going to be a problem right off the bat. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So our length of our curve is 2.45, and we are going to divide that by 0.98, and it needs to be 2.5. So we're close. Actually, I mean, you know, we actually are pretty close. I didn't think it would actually work out to be that close. No, we're not close. What was I thinking? We're not close because it's telling us 2.5 segments. Well, we can't have 2.5 segments, right? So because we can either have 2 or we can have 3. We can't have a half a segment. So let's pull this down. I'm going to switch over and I'm going to show you a tool that I created to resolve this issue for myself. And that is the little neon helper. Okay, so I'm going to start right here. And what this does is when I click on it, it tells me what it is, which is 12.71. It tells me what I need, which is 12.865. And then it tells me how many segments are involved. Okay, so I need to change this curve from 12.71 to 12.865. And the easiest way to do that is just to make it a little bit longer. So you see there, we're at 12.84, that says 12.86. So we could pull this down just a little bit longer. 12.86, 12.86, boom, Bob's your uncle. That one will start and stop exactly on a cut line, which is what we need. So what I did here was, this is our original, just randomly created design. Now we're going to go in and finesse it. And I'm going to show you what the difference is between the two. So this one is 8.54, and we need it to be 8.945. 9 segments. So that's a pretty big difference. So how do we do that? Well, I think the simplest way to do that is to stretch this bad boy out a little bit. We could make it taller, would be another option, but I'm going to just go ahead and stretch, stretch, stretch. 9.4. There's 8.9. So let's just move it just a little bit. 8.91. So you see it, we're barely moving it at all, and it's having an effect on the current line segment and the required line segment. So let's pull it about. And we're zoomed in so tight, that's why it seems like we're moving a lot, but in actuality, we're really not moving it that much. Okay, so we really stretched that out. So what I would do is come up here and reduce our nodes quite significantly, and then we can kind of smooth things out a little bit. So we'll delete that, and we'll delete that. We'll delete this. So you see how it's much smoother now? And that's just a matter of like getting to know CorelDRAW, what to do when type thing, and that way you can really smooth that out, okay? So now for our next segment, I knew this was going to be a challenge because it's telling me that I'm at 2.45, but I need to be at 3.06 and 3 segments. So that's a pretty big, significant deal. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that. So now it's telling me I need to be at 2.08, and we're at 2.14. Now, really, that's probably within tolerance. Normally, I wouldn't normally mess with it, but see here, it's 2.07. It's telling us we need to be at 2.08. So I could just bump that. Now I am at 2.08. Okay, let's go back over to normal mode so you can see I am where I need to be. So there you go. Okay. So we'll just keep moving on here. I am going to greatly reduce these nodes. And then probably delete them a little bit more. Let's go ahead and put an anchor there. And let's go ahead and delete those two. And then I'll put an anchor here and delete this one. And that will just help smooth things out a bit. All these extra nodes, we don't need all those extra nodes. Okay? I'm kind of a little bit fanatical when it comes to nodes. Okay? So now we're going to connect, have just a little bit of space between the two. And then, so now this is 6.06. It needs to be, or 6.66. It needs to be 6.9. So what I would probably do first is just draw this up. That'll get us really close. We're at 6.96, and we need to be at 9.8. We're at 9.9. There's 9.8. So there we go. So you can see, not a big deal there. This segment is, we need to be, we're at 2.3, and we need to be 2.08. So first things first, let's get rid of those extra nodes that we don't really need. Okay, that didn't change us a whole lot, but what I'll do is I'll just add a node here, just kind of randomly, and just trim that back. So now we're at 2.05, we need to be at 2.8. So we're a little bit short now. Or 2.08, that's at 2.09. Pull that back just a bit. There we go, 2.08. So we'll just move this over a little bit. Slide this over. We'll select all of these nodes, and again, we'll reduce them by a lot. I usually reduce them by 10. Start there. I always do that. Always do that, and I don't know why. So we're going to delete those two nodes after putting that little anchor point there. Oops. My bad. I selected that one right there, and I shouldn't have. Okay. And then, let's see. Then what do we want to do? We'll add a couple anchor points and delete this one. That'll smooth things out. That's good. We'll delete this one. All right. So now let's see how big we are at. We're at 10.9, and we need to be at 10.9. Look at there. The only thing is we're a little bit too close here. So we're going to modify this a little bit, but we can pull it down so we can get our length. So we're back to 10.9, but I'm happy with that spacing. Okay. So now that is our new love sign. Okay. So each one of these segments, though, are exactly going to cut on a cut line. That's where the difference is. So these will not. Some of them will be really close, and some of them will be way off, way off. And so we have to make our necessary adjustments. But what I want to do here is I'm going to group this one, and I want to give it a different color. And then we'll group this one, because I just want to show you the difference. So see there? That's the difference. But in certain situations, that would be significant. But in this case, and most of your designs are going to look like this. So most of your designs, the actual design changes very, very little, as you can see. But the difference is the strokes. So this one here, again, it's going to, we're at 12.71, but we need to be at 12.8. You know, that's that's almost an eighth of an inch difference there. So 12.75 would be 3/4, and then 12.875 is 7/8. So that's almost an eighth of an inch difference. So that's not that significant for this example. But what about the next one? So this is where it gets off by a lot. So here we're supposed to be at we are at 8.54, but we need to be at 8.9 to land exactly on a cut line. So now we're You know, we're definitely 3/8 of an inch off, but you know, we're practically a half inch off, and so that's pretty significant. Here, another thing, you can see here we're at 2.45, and we need to be at 3.065, and so there you're off almost 5/8 of an inch. So that is significant, and so each time, you know, the 5/8 of an inch is 0.625. So if you added 0.625 to this, you wouldn't quite be at 3. You'd still be a little shy, or actually just be right at this number actually. So yeah, you're about 5/8 of an inch short there. So that is significant. Here you're at 0.67 versus 0.98. So here again you're off by 1/4 of an inch. So it can be significant, and it's easy to fix. That's the takeaway. So if you utilize this tool, it definitely makes it faster, but you definitely can get the job done without the tool as well. So hopefully that kind of explains my process a little bit on how to get your designs to land dead on those cut lines.